Hello and welcome to this week's bonus podcast with me, Michael.
And me, Gemma.
And this week we have got a discussion on famous people on Coronation Street. I hear that Corrie does have some famous people in.
I heard that a lot of the people in it are famous because they're in Coronation Street.
Yeah, everyone knows. We're not talking about that kind of famous people today. We thought we're going to be looking today at famous faces, not usually in Corrie, who've made little cameo appearances and stuff, and just kind of what we think about when Corrie does that, when they get their celebrity sign-ins for a little stint or a guest appearance or a longer, you know. And this was inspired by, obviously, we're just recording this a few days after King Charles's coronation, and he was actually the one and only Coronation Street cast member to ever become a monarch. So I think that's quite good of him, really. He made an appearance back in 2000, and you know, it was obviously gave him the boost that he needed to become the head of state.
Exactly.
William Roach next, I think, is all I can say there. So yeah, we are. I just wanted to start off by thinking, what do you think about having famous folks on Corrie and saying, hey, look everybody, so-and-so is going to be in an episode next week or for a period. Do you like it? Does it bother you? Does it take you out of it?
There's definitely two types of celebrities that appear on Corrie. There are people that are already actors and there are people who are famous for something else, you know? So if somebody's like a highly lauded actor, so, spoiler alert, for example. What are you laughing about?
No, there's no spoiler alert for something we're about to talk about soon. You're talking about like Ian McKellen or someone like that. McKellen. You don't mind that?
No. It's a different kind of thing, isn't it? Mm. They're usually not as taxing when it's somebody who isn't an actor.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me because sometimes if somebody's too famous, it makes you think, oh, yeah, this isn't real, is it?
That's exactly what I was thinking, and soaps really thrive on the fact that they're supposed to be real, and I know with what's going on soaps at the moment, it's not exactly the same as what happens just down outside your front door, hopefully not anyway, but it is supposed to represent real life, and people, I guess, are supposed to consider the soap characters as real people in a way. We're not talking like, you know, back in the day when a soap character went in hospital and then Granada TV was flooded with flowers and anything. But it still feels to me like soaps are of a different ilk than, say, the usual, you know, 9 p.m. ITV drama where, of course, any, you know, big name actor or actress can appear in it. And yeah, it can take you out of it a little bit. I mean, I was having a look at what some other people thought about this online, and Stephen Murphy, who used to edit Inside Soap, he came on the podcast the other year, he had this to say about it. Soaps are supposed to be the closest thing we get to real life, and a famous face can take away our belief in the programme, and that really ties into what I was saying a little bit.
That's why I kind of like it when there's a cameo where if they're going to be on it, they're themselves. I'd much prefer that than like, oh look, it's Lorraine Kelly, but she's actually playing, you know, Ina Sharple's long lost grandniece.
Yeah, there is an element of suspension of disbelief when we're supposed to say, oh look, you know, sorry, Ian McKellen, I'll pretend I don't know that and think he is a con artist. Or
can I just say that with Sir Ian McKellen, because he's such a fantastic actor, I think that he overcame that.
That is actually quite true.
It's the same with Maureen Lipman, because I would say she's a similar level of fame in this country. I wouldn't say, you know, she's not as prestigious, perhaps, you know.
No.
You're not in Hollywood movies, but she's certainly incredibly well known. But
I can just imagine Maureen Lipman, Evelyn, standing there on the bridge with her rolling pin going, none shall pass. That's a Gandalf quote, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I know something about Lord of the Rings. I'm not just a Corrie nerd. I get it. But I suppose if you've got a, let's say, less than stellar celebrity casting, and they really show themselves up to be like, you're not doing such a great job of this, then that really, really can take you out of it. And I'm sure we'll cover some of those as well. Even like, we'll be looking at long-term celebrity appearances like Maureen Lipman, for example. We'll be looking at cameos. We'll be seeing what counts as a cameo. Is it just a little walk-in part, or are we talking about something that lasts for an episode or a couple of episodes before they go? I mean, I was thinking, you know, the other thing recently on Coronation Street that kind of sparked me into wanting to do this week is you got Ruthie Henshaw, who plays Estelle, and a big hoo-ha was made out of her joining the cast a month or so ago. And yeah, I didn't know who she was. Now that's not saying much because I've not got a brilliant list of celebrities in my head. But also, she was only in it really briefly, wasn't she? Had you?
Does that count as a celebrity cameo?
Well, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what you're trying to ask.
When it was announced that she was going to be in it, they had the photo shoot with her and Jodie Prenger. They had, look everybody, look who we've got. It's Ruthie Henshaw, and then probably lots of people who are not just, watch one or two programmes and that's it. We're like, oh, it's her. She's been on the West End for 30 years. She was in I'm a Celebrity a couple of years ago. Oh, that's kind of nice.
Here's another question. Do you think that on the whole, Coronation Street tends to mostly cast people who are not well-known actors or actresses, or are only known as working previously in soap? Or
I'm not
genre.
Not watching other soaps, it's difficult to say exactly. I mean, I think they've all got a fair share of characters that have been really big and well known for something else, like Craig Charles being cast as Lloyd Mulaney.
But what I'm thinking of,
but then in EastEnders you had Barbara Windsor, who was cast as what's her face, Peggy Mitchell.
I would imagine to Barbara Maureen Lipman.
Yes, exactly.
So what I'm thinking of is there are loads and loads of actors who are seemingly in everything, but they're not in soaps. So I guess it's that snobbery of it's not just the actors themselves, but they're scared of being typecast.
Yes,
or restricted, and so they don't want to go into working on soaps for whatever reason. But I think that some people are kind of breaking that down a little bit.
Yes, I would think so.
Sarah Lancashire. I would even say Danny Dyer. Kind of.
Yeah,
pushing themselves in.
There are definitely certain actors who have come out of Coronation Street, EastEnders, maybe Emmerdale, I'm not sure, who have gone on to do huge things and made people say, "Oh, look, soap."
Maybe soaps aren't that bad.
But then equally, other people who have got that frame of mind might say, "Oh, they've gone on to bigger and better things, and they were far too good for Coronation Street as well."
I think that's more like what people think.
Yeah. So with Ruthie Henshaw, for me. Watching her a couple of weeks ago, because I had no clue who she was when she came in singing down the street as Estelle, I was like, okay, this is just another character. This could be literally anybody. So that didn't take me out of the experience at all. I wonder whether it did for other people. Talking of Glenda, Jodie Prenger was also relatively well known, wasn't she?
I really had no idea how famous she was until I looked into her a bit more recently, because when she was cast, I obviously was listening to what you were saying about, oh, she was in this, she was in that, but I genuinely thought she was only famous from doing I'll Do Anything, which she's not. She was famous before then.
And similarly, you got your Tony Maudsley.
Yeah. Now he's an example of what I was talking about, with somebody who is been in other things and sort of a fairly prominent person.
Yeah,
but is it easier to go from comedy to soaps?
I wonder.
Than it is to go from drama to soaps.
And if you do you get kind of typecast, or is there the expectation you will play a comedy character? And I know George in Coronation Street he is a bit. I think he's certainly there to deliver some kind of light relief, but he's in no way as outrageously, obviously comedic as Kenneth was in Benidorm. So it was funny for us having. We knew George for a couple of years before we even started watching Benidorm recently, but I wonder, for current Corrie watchers, how hard is it to remove that idea of Tony Maudsley's previous character that he had played for 10 years?
Yeah.
And partly it does depend on the quality of the actor. I'm going back to Craig Charles again, playing Lloyd. Now, Red Dwarf, I was absolutely obsessed with when I was a teenager, and when he got cast on Coronation Street, I think I must have thought, "What? That's Lister off Red Dwarf. I'm never going to be able to see him as a Coronation Street character." But I absolutely did. He totally won me over, and I think this is what we get with Tony Maudsley as well, to be honest, because the role is. Actually, no, Lloyd wasn't that far away from Lister, to be honest, but because he was a really decent actor as well, that helped me to forget. And I suppose, how long was he in the show? 6, 7, 8, 9 years? I've lost count. After a while, you are gonna start to accept it more, or forget your previous misgivings, aren't you? So we will come to some of these again later. We're going to just run down kind of different types of famous person and different types of celebrity cameo appearances, and I thought it could be quite fun. As we have just said, King Charles was on Coronation Street in 2000. We'll look at we'll look at actors who came onto the show playing themselves in a role, and this is what you said you quite liked, didn't you?
Yep, exactly. I don't like people pretending on my television. Find it disconcerting.
Well, unsurprisingly, there's only been a couple of famous faces that have appeared, at least in speaking roles, playing themselves. I mean, Charles didn't even have anything to say when he was on it. But
hang on, can we just clarify the appearance? We always say this, but the appearance was actually him in a news... It was like him on the screen.
Yes.
So they were watching television, and he was on the television, and on the television he was meeting Sue Nichols, and Sue Nichols was not in character when she met him, but it was portrayed as such on the show, as that Audrey was meeting King Charles.
So it's not the same as, because I think it was just last year.
Prince William. He was Prince William, and now he's King Charles.
I think last year it was that Charles and Camilla went on EastEnders, didn't they? And I think they had actually roles.
Did they actually go on?
Yeah. They had roles. There's a scene with them meeting Mick and that. So it wasn't. It wasn't like that. You're right. It was footage of him and Sue Nichols shot earlier that day, which was then inserted into the live episode that evening, and it had Natalie, I'm going to say, watching it, maybe Violet, I can't remember. So it kind of counts as a Coronation Street appearance. I'm counting it anyway.
He's got his own Corripedia page.
Well, that's all you need, isn't it?
If you've got your own Corripedia page, you made it.
So the first famous person that I could find having a part on Coronation Street playing themselves in any notable way was Bernard Manning, the famous stand-up comedian who made an appearance on the Cobbles in 1971.
Yeah, I don't know how famous Bernard Manning is outside of the UK, but he was a very popular sort of working class northern stand-up comic. He would, make silly... Wasn't he famous for mother-in-law jokes?
Probably. I don't know much about... I don't think I've really seen him very much. No,
I don't think that any
comedian from the 70s, you can probably guess the type of material that made up the bulk of any comedian's set at that time. But anyway, so he makes an appearance in Coronation Street at an RNLI ball, and Annie Walker goes to, along with I think Nellie Harvey and some of the other landlords and landladies and other people, and he's just there doing a stand-up gig, so he's playing himself on the stage and everyone's watching, and then Annie kind of walks in, and I think reading the scene when I was watching it the other day, she looks there, and I don't think she finds it that funny, but then she sees other people laughing and she's like, oh, I need to be like them, and then she kind of laughs along as well. So let me try these jokes out on you, Gemma, these Bernard Manning Coronation Street jokes.
Let me see if I laugh.
Lancashire lad goes down the Labour Exchange and says, is there any work in? Man says, certainly. What would you want to paint a 100-foot chimney? He says 100-foot brush. Don't spoil my punchline for me.
You said to pay. You said how much do you want to pay?
It's the way you tell him, isn't it? That's why I'm not a stand-up comic.
What would you want
to paint a 100-foot chimney? And he says 100-foot brush.
That was funny, but just to lift the curtain on our lives here, we did watch this
about 3 or 4 times to try and figure out what he was saying. It is another one. So it begins, Irishman. I'm going, oh. No. Irishman coming down the garden path with 16 dustbins under this arm, 16 dustbins under this arm, 12 dustbins on his head, 6 dustbins on his shoulder, 4 dustbins on other shoulder. And the foreman says, oh, it's marvellous you do that. How do you do that? And he says, it's easy. I just put my lips together and go...
That's quite funny, apart from the Irish.
I don't get why it needs to be in Irish.
Well, you do know why it was supposed to be.
Well, unnecessary addition.
I don't think there were. It's interesting because this kind of joke, usually it's an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Scotsman, isn't it? And the Englishman is always the clever one, and then the Scotsman, and then the Irishman is the one who the punchline is about.
Yeah, he's the butt of the joke.
This is actually very regional, and I didn't realise until quite late into my teens that there were different versions of this joke depending on where you live.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so in France they have a different kind of version.
Oh, I see.
And I can't remember who's supposed to be the idiot in that one, but yes, probably it's not very funny, is it?
There was also one other long-winded joke about a lunatic, apparently, being taken up the moors by a woman who's got this really fancy car, and then she's laying there on the grass, takes her knickers off and says, "Oh, you can have whatever you want." And he ends up taking the car, and then he's telling this story to another lunatic, and the other lunatic says, "Oh, that was a good idea. Her knickers might not have even fit you." So Annie Walker was not amused by that.
I mean,
that was a little bit too below the belt.
The content is fine, but the punchline, the people that are being made fun of.
I don't know any story behind why Bernard Manning in particular was chosen to be on this. Like, was he just knocking about Granada Studios one day, or was he a mega Corrie fan and wanted to do a little set on it? I really don't know.
I mean, he's not very politically correct, but
no,
we have to.
I'm just telling you what happened.
But also, the thing is, it's quite funny. When they depicted Annie like not being amused, it wasn't because, I'm going to guess, because she was being progressive and saying, you shouldn't make fun of Irish people or lunatics.
No, it was literally the knickers joke that she didn't like.
It was probably also because they're showing that she's out of touch with common people. And that she can enjoy herself and let her hair down.
Yeah. I suppose that type of cameo could work well at any point, couldn't it? Just having celebrities or presenters or whatever come in and doing a gig. I suppose the other thing about having these kind of cameos on Coronation Street and how believable they are is how often in real life do normal people see an actual celebrity doing something. And it's not often, but it's also not completely unknown. So this kind of thing, for me, works fine enough.
I'm pretty sure if you ask any person, have you ever met a celebrity, like, in the wild, they'll all have a story about one time when they met. Yeah. Because, Bernard Manning, Annie deliberately went to an event where he's performing. So that's not the same thing. But there was a Viva Las Vegas spin-off.
Yeah, so this had Joan Collins. This was on one of the it was the VHS that came out in the late 90s. This maybe was a Russell T Davies written episode. And on the play, the story is that Jack and Vera, along with, I'm going to say Maxine and Fiona, I think, go over to Las Vegas. And on the plane back, Joan Collins is there on the plane with her. Probably not the most realistic, but this was all supposed to be like a parody of an old advert where Joan Collins leans back on an aeroplane chair and spills drink over her. Well, in this particular final scene of the episode, I think it must be Vera leans back and gets drink all over her, and then Joan Collins happens to be walking down the aisle and says, "Oh, don't worry, darling, it'll wash out." That kind of appearance doesn't bother me. It's a spin-off. It's clearly just done for a laugh. It's a parody of a relatively famous advert at the time, so I don't mind that.
Well, also, she shares a TV show in common with Tony Maudsley because they were both on Benidorm.
That is very true, very true.
And also, I'm just going to say, Joan Collins appearing in something randomly, not unheard of.
No, she does like to show her face sometimes, doesn't she? Now, another really, really famous, probably the most famous, I'm going to say, instance of celebrities playing themselves on Coronation Street is Status Quo back in 2005. So, do you want to remind us?
How famous is Status Quo in other countries?
I'm going to say famous enough. Aging rockers, but certainly back in, they were a big band. But,
they played Live Aid.
Yeah. A favourite of Les Battersby's. So, what do you remember about? Did you enjoy Status Quo making an appearance?
So their most famous song is "Rockin' All Over the World." So yes. I definitely know that they are famous. Else.
I think they're pretty famous. Did you enjoy seeing them on Coronation Street? Did it feel natural to you? Because it was a little bit of a farce, the whole wedding, wasn't it? But
they were in 3 episodes in 2005. This was quite a protracted. Yeah. Can you call it a cameo? If they're in 3 episodes,
I'm gonna still say yes, but especially as they were playing themselves.
It's bizarre, really. I think it's fabulous, but it is quite an anomaly, really. So they were in 3 episodes in 2005. Francis Rossi has his neck in a brace because Les caused him an injury in the fictional world of Coronation Street.
Back in the day.
Years ago. He attacks Les, and then because of this, he has to compensate him by agreeing to play at his and Les's and Scylla's wedding. So then they eat the buffet.
It's all very rock and roll, and it all goes a bit wrong. Yeah, status quo, eat the buffet.
Les tells them to smash it all up, but actually they smash up all the presents. Then they feel sorry for him because he's marrying Scylla, and they pull him on stage and they all perform. And I think this is great because Francis Rossi said, both Rick and I are lifelong fans of Coronation Street, and so to be in the Rovers with the regulars is an ambition fulfilled.
This is certainly stretching the limits of credulity that these people would, show up, they'd remember Les, they'd agree to play at his wedding. But I didn't mind it because the whole wedding was just so completely out there and unrealistic, wasn't it? From this to, you had your Scylla's 666 curls on her forehead, the whole thing about them smashing up the presents, everything, the fake wedding, getting married really quickly in the church with a fake vicar and then running off. This was Corrie's most outrageous wedding ever. Gemma's is coming up soon to try and rival it.
This is what I'm expecting of Gemma, but with all the stuff hanging over everyone's head,
especially with Paul, don't think we're gonna.
I can't imagine it being quite as raucous and fun.
No.
As this. So also Rick Parfitt added, we never miss an episode, down to our gigs beginning after 8:15. So we can see the show in our dressing rooms. Being in Coronation Street is like being part of British history.
I think if they did this sort of thing all the time, it'd start to really, really grate on me.
Yeah, that's really true, actually.
It happened, it's fine. It also, at the end of this, Candice, the hairdresser, went off to be their personal stylist, didn't she? And that's the last we've heard of Candice, as far as we know. She still is. So, yeah, this has got to be a real, very, very rare thing to happen, but I honestly didn't mind it, and it was, and Les, was a fan of the Quo, and he'd been in the show how long? Nearly 10 years or so at this point, 8 years, and he'd been always going on about the Quo. So to get them feature, it was just, that was.
They don't really have that anymore, do they?
What?
Somebody sort of being a rabid fan of a real life.
Well, I mean,
celebrity.
They like to drop in who Mary fancies every now and again, don't they?
That's true.
Who's that presenter guy? Ben Shepherd, is it? Is that his name? She's got his... And that's...
Why hasn't he been in it?
That's a bit weird. And the thing with that is like, he's an ITV presenter that an ITV character fancies, but to have actual status quo, that is pretty high status, should I say. Now, just recently, we've also had another couple of fairly probably easy to get ITV Media City style celebrities on Coronation Street. And I'd forgotten this first one. Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield made an appearance back in 2018 when Rosie, Craig and Gemma went on This Morning. Do you remember that one?
I think we'd all just put it to the back of our minds.
That was weird. So
5 years ago today.
That was after... That was part of Rosie's leaving story, I think, before Helen went off on maternity leave, and they'd been involved in some drugs busts. Do you remember? It was Antoine was his name. He was smuggling cocaine through the factory or something. It was very odd.
Can I say, much better idea than with nippersnappers. just trafficking drugs.
Well, that's what they've been doing at the bistro, isn't it? So Get onto the underworld, Damon.
Look into it, I say.
Yeah, so because they were able to bring down this international drugs tycoon, Phil and Holly invited Craig, Gemma and Rosie onto the sofa on This Morning, which, morning daytime TV. Well, we saw the Corrie special last week. And
I think I just remember this being very cringy.
I think it was a bit cringy. Craig was there just completely dumbstruck and looking like he didn't know what to say and he was about to burst into tears. Rosie was there. She was good, actually. Helen was great playing Rosie, kind of slinking in with their sexy outfit and everything and just being her thick self. Rosie, that is. And Gemma was there looking like an absolute dog's dinner, kind of frozen with stage fright. But it felt like it was just a bit of a...
it just didn't feel real.
It didn't. And I don't...
It felt
and yes, people in real life do get invited on these things.
Self-indulgent. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It did. It didn't feel like it would necessarily fit on Coronation Street to me. Similarly, I would say to Lorraine Kelly's appearance the following year in 2019. That one is certainly more memorable, so it's got that going for it. And it was, fairly brief as well. So this was the Britain's Got Talent week in 2019 when the Platts have gone to some outdoor camping place and
Centre Parks.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And Gail's there. I mean, this is maybe one of the reasons that I think is a bit silly. This was Gail at her buffoonish best or worst. And she's like, I think that's Lorraine Kelly. There's Lorraine Kelly. And then she kind of commandeers a pedalo and starts pedaling over the lake to go and find her when it's not actually her. Lorraine, we then see, is on the shore. And then obviously the main bit that people remember is Gail shooting Lorraine Kelly with an arrow during an archery session in the bum. In the thigh it was, wasn't it? But everyone remembers in the bum. And Lorraine Kelly comes out of the tent going, "Oh, you daft wee woman!" I think I don't mind that more because I don't know whether it's so bad it's good or just, oh, well, it was brief, it was short, it was kind of funny. Let's not dwell on it. What's your lasting impression of that?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to leave that without comment, I think. Probably.
I don't need them to keep on doing that kind of celebrity appearance. I would, be perfectly happy to have no celebrity appearances.
Well, my favourite ones are the ones that you don't actually even realise it's them until you get told.
But it's, sort of blink and you miss them.
Or just, so we've got...
Well, there's some of them that you can keep your eyes open and still miss them, to be fair.
Yeah, so Cliff Richard was actually in Corrie in 1997.
Yeah,
So how did that happen?
Well, he was a big Corrie fan. He was one of the people that did the 60 for 60.
Yeah, along with you, Michael.
Along with me and Cliff, both contributed to Coronation Street 60th anniversary online social media presence. It's true. But yeah, he'd been a big fan of Coronation Street since way back at the beginning. I mean, there's a funny story about Minnie Caldwell. Telling...
He's lovely and chubby.
Yeah, saying he's a lovely chubby boy or something, talking to Martha and Ina back in the 60s, and then apparently Cliff saw them talking about him like this, and then went on a bit of a slim down, and he was like, in a way, he kind of says, "Oh, thank you, I looked at myself in some holiday or something, and I was a little bit chubby, I thought."
But maybe this is why they don't mention celebrities because you don't want to give them complexes
or eating disorders, but no. Anyway, so he in 1997 managed to wangle himself apart on Corrie, and it was literally just a case of he came into the bar and he was standing there. Even if you watch the episode though, and you can find on Corriepedia for which episode it is, you can't even tell he's there. I've seen a couple of behind the scenes pictures of him standing at the bar. There's like a scene with Andy and Liz talking to each other, Andy and Liz McDonald. And Cliff is standing right next to them. It's like a publicity shot. But then in the actual episode himself, you can only see the back of his jacket and maybe the tiniest slither of his face. Although he is sporting a big beard at that time as well. And Cliff Richard is famously known for his clean-shaven look. So there, he was there, but unless you were told, there is no way anybody is going to look at him and say, "Oh, look, there's Cliff Richard, famous Peter Pan songster from the 50s. For those ones, I kind of think, well, if it makes them happy, let them do it. But what's the point?
What do you mean, what's the point? I think it's great. It adds to the mythology of Coronation Street, and also it does add to the kudos that, I defend soap actors viciously when people try to insinuate that perhaps they're not as talented or it's not as prestigious as other things, but there's definitely a cachet to having somebody like Cliff Richard on your show, or like we keep saying, what's his face?
I don't know.
Super famous wizard man.
In the canon. Yeah. Super famous wizard man.
Super famous wizard.
Get that put on your cards.
So Michael Crawford, who played Frank Spencer in Some Mothers Do Have Them, and he's also in Phantom of the Opera in the lead role. He orders a drink from Alec in the bar in 1998.
Yes, he does actually get a speaking line. Yeah. He says, "Can I have a pint, please?" This one, it was absolutely a blink and you miss it appearance. You'd probably have to be told to notice. I how many people know who Michael Crawford looks like? I certainly wouldn't be able to pick him out of the crowd. Absolutely. I didn't even realise, because I'd heard the name. I'm not, big into musical theatre or anything like that. I saw the name, and when I read about Phantom of the Opera, I was like, oh yeah, I think I remember him, that name being associated with Phantom. But I didn't realise that he was Frank Spencer at all. He was a famously kind of timid, camp,
another
70s,
incredibly famous in the UK, but I'm not sure how well it translated. Some Mothers Do Have 'Em was basically a comedy of errors.
I've never seen Some Mothers Do Have 'Em.
My mother hates this programme because she hated the way the joke was basically Frank Spencer was always trying to sort of be, make himself small and unobtrusive, but he would wreck everything. It was kind of like Mr. Bean, but with
speaking.
With yeah.
Apparently, he'd auditioned for a part in Coronation Street way before his appearance in 1998, but he didn't get it. But they did, for some reason, say... he was
promoting his autobiography.
Yeah, he was around promoting his
Granada.
autobiography at Granada, you're right. And they said, well, do you want to come onto the set? And he was like,
yeah.
Yeah. And he was very pleased with himself because his character got Mike Baldwin to buy him a drink, apparently. So,
nice
that's an absolutely blink and you'll miss it. Same with Peter Schmeichel, famous goalie
I thought he was
of
just
the
famous
90s.
for having a dog named after him.
Well, that's what he ended
There's
up
more
being.
to it, I hear.
There is more to it. Well, yeah, he made a background appearance in 1999 and he was just walking down the street. I don't know what Peter Schmeichel... Is he the one with the moustache?
No, I think he's just tall and lanky, isn't he?
I don't... I literally...
He's really tall.
I don't know, but... I mean, all of these episodes have recently appeared on ITV3, or at least in the last 5 years or so, and I've watched them, and none of them I've kind of gone, oh look, there's so and so in the background. And then we also, the last one of these types of appearances.
I don't know who he is. Then he looks like that.
Oh, he doesn't have a moustache.
Well, sometimes he does.
Sometimes he does. Who knows? Who knows? So the last appearance of this type that I've been able to find anyway was Derek Jacobi. Mega thesp, isn't he? He's had BAFTAs, he's had Olivia Awards, got a Tony Award, he got a CBE for services to theatre, and he appeared as an extra in The Bistro in 2012. And
Derek Jacobi is amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him in many things.
Cadfile.
No, not seen it, but I can picture him in a little video cassette with Cadfile written on top of him. Now you're right. For me, he was. His most famous role for me was playing the Master in one episode of Doctor Who in Series 3 back in 2008, 2009 or so, and he's the one that was like, he was Dr. Yana in that he didn't realise that it was the Master, and then he had memories come back to him. And then, sorry for spoiling something that's nearly 20 years old, and then he morphs into...
Can I suggest something
what's the fun Master? The one that's on Life on Mars? You know what I mean?
John Sims.
Yeah, he morphs into John Sims, sorry.
Can I suggest you another bonus episode?
What?
Coronation Street and Doctor Who.
I think we could easily get something out of that, to be honest. But anyway, so after that, that he said, "Oh, one of my ambitions since the 60s has been to take part in a Doctor Who. The other one is Coronation Street, so I've cracked Doctor Who now. I'm still waiting for Corrie." So so he was, the 3 years later, he finally did make an appearance in Corrie in the background. The only video footage that I could find of this was a really dodgy, grainy YouTube video, and I've been told that he's in that first scene of the episode, but I couldn't notice.
This is 2012, so it's not like it was years ago.
No, it was just a bad quality one was uploaded.
So we're going to have to wait a long time for this to be on Classic.
Yeah. There may well be other ones. I didn't look too hard, I'll admit it. So we've really, as far as I could tell, only had 4 or 5 mini celebrities just, lending their aura to a Coronation Street scene without making any actual change to the scene.
Gonna argue here that most of these were playing themselves or just playing nobody in particular that would even appear as a character. But there have definitely been cameos where somebody has been hired to play a particular character so that Coronation Street can go, look at this.
Yeah, just going back to that last one, sorry, I just wanted to say, if they just let anybody in to be a background character in the Rovers, I still feel like maybe we have the chance to do this, Gemma. I just want to walk down the street carrying a Freshco's bag or something, but even if that's, too much, just let me be in a scene with somebody. Maybe see the back of my head. I'm not going bald there yet, it's okay.
I'm really feeling like my skill of sitting down and drinking could be utilised to great effect.
Yeah, I mean, you don't like appearing on camera or anything, so
No,
you
I
could
wouldn't do
be
it.
but you could be in a Coronation Street
No.
scene, and part of it could be, don't put me in the scene.
No.
I just want to feel that I'm there and have people
No.
say, I saw that.
No.
Why not?
I'd
Just
watch
in
you
case you slipped into it or something.
I don't know what you're talking about. We were there when Stephen dragged Leo's body.
That's actually true.
We
That
were
is very
off
true.
camera.
We were just round the corner when Stephen was dragging Leo's body last year.
Can I just say,
Yes,
we
yes.
were standing behind the camera, which means actually that scene was filmed from our perspective. So we were the viewer.
Yeah.
We were representing the viewer.
Okay, so that was actually
done it.
pretty cool.
We've
But
done
yeah,
it.
so my next step up from that is to like maybe have, you know, a foot in shot or maybe an elbow. Just to say that's
Yeah,
me.
no, but you won't stop there, will you? Because once you get that, then you'll be hungry for more, and you'll want a line, and then once you get your line, then you'll want to be a character, and then
I
once
don't
you've been
think
a
once
character,
people saw me deliver one line, I don't think they're going to be hiring me back to say
isn't
any
it
more
funny
than
how like I know that both of us would really screw up just doing something like if we went to like say Starbucks, we were like, can I have a caramel macchiato? I could do that, but if I was like, right, I need to ask Jenny for a cider, I'd be like, hello, may I have a cider, please?
I know. It's weird. It's just the most natural thing to say.
Convincingly do it.
I know.
Okay,
I know,
so
sorry,
who
I
else has
interrupted
been?
you earlier.
So Peter Kay
Yeah.
appeared in 2004 as Eric Gartside.
For me-
so that was in 2 episodes.
For me, I'm gonna
Double
and it was a
episode.
double episode. For me, this is the pinnacle of Coronation Street celebrity casting. It was absolutely a hey, look at us, we've got Peter Kay. There was no kind of it was just the man for the job. It was.
What are you saying?
It wasn't like, well, we wrote this part of Eric Gartside, and then we were kind of cast our net far and wide, and the person that really was the best for the
Okay.
job we found was Peter Kay. I assume
you're
that
suggesting they wrote
I am
this for him.
suggesting that the part was written for him, and it absolutely fits in. I mean, it wouldn't even surprise me if Peter Kay was involved in writing the script for the episode,
Well,
because
you
it was
know,
just absolutely brilliant.
You say it fits him, but this isn't. Peter Kay is one of these comedic character actors, a bit like, say, can't think of any examples. Catherine Tate,
Yes.
where he's not a sketch comedian, is he? Is he? I don't know.
I don't know. He did Phoenix Nights, didn't he? And I don't think that was a sketch show. That was a sitcom.
He's a stand-up.
He's mostly known for stand-up.
But he can do characters, and
Yes.
this was a comedic character.
Yeah, and I think Peter Kay is also known for being just kind of nice and not rude and crude or anything like that in his
admit,
sets.
I've not seen anything with him in it.
Inoffensive but funny, and
not because I don't like Peter Kay.
No, I haven't. But this is what I hear
not
about
come
him.
across him.
And the character that he played, Eric, was just brilliant. Also, just kind of nice, but also funny. But I think his thing as well was that he was completely oblivious and just putting his foot in it throughout the episode. So the story goes that Shelley was in between men at the time. Shelley Unwin, the bar manager at the Rovers, or was she? Yeah, I can't remember what she was at that point. And so Eric plays a drayman who comes in and invites her out to dinner, and straight away in this first scene he's talking. He meets Bev there, doesn't he? Shelley's mum, and I can't remember.
There's something about.
He says something about.
You look like you could be sisters, and she says, "No, no," and he says, "Yeah, oh yeah, you're right." You can
always
tell by the neck.
That's right. She's like, "Oh, I'm far too old" or something. He's like, "Oh yeah, you couldn't tell," and she says, "Oh, you just need to look a bit closer," and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's right. The neck, that's the giveaway, isn't it?" Hilarious. Just putting his foot in it, and then he takes Shelley off to a restaurant, and he's just making a fuss about, you know, being put in the back of the restaurant where he says, "Oh, they always put like all the ugly people in the back of the restaurant. They like to have the beautiful ones up by the window to try and get people in. Well, I tell you that you're better looking than all of these people." And just the way that he delivers the line is, if I imagine that I was Shelley, I'd be like, "Oh, thanks for that." You just kind of
Well, he also, when she tells him that she was married to a bigamist, he says, "You must have looked back and thought, how thick did I look?"
Yeah, and she's like,
"Oh dear.
I did think that, I suppose, but I don't need telling it."
Another great quote. "Let's keep politics out of it tonight, and religion. I Catholic? Never mind, don't want to know."
Yeah, and then when the food comes, because it's some fancy restaurant, it's very kind of, what's it called
it's
when
fancy.
it's just a little
Garnish.
No. What's it called when you have a food and it's just a tiny minimal bit of food?
haute cuisine.
Yeah, I was thinking that kind of thing, and it's got these little sage leaves around the outside of something in the middle, and he was like, "Well, what's all this? There's hardly any food on here, and there's leaves. Why is there leaves on this plate? Chef's left the door open again."
It's a bit like
it was so
Frank
good.
Not Frank. Who am I thinking of?
I don't know.
I say, who am I thinking
Fred?
of? Yeah, Fred.
Maybe.
He's a bit like Fred.
But I think Fred would know that, and you don't know whether Eric's character was saying it just to try and be funny, or whether he really thought that leaves were blown onto it. I don't know. There's another great line where, leading on from that, where Shelley goes, "Oh, the food is well presented," and he's like, "I'm a so's Blue Peter."
You wouldn't want to eat that though, would you?
Exactly. And then, for me, another brilliant part of the episode is when he then takes Shelley back home to his mum. And I can't remember who it was that played her, but she was just like sitting there in her dressing gown, wasn't she, and making all these pointed comments about Shelley, making sort of saying she's not approving of her profession as a barmaid. She's just a bit nutty, isn't she? And clearly Eric has just not quite cut the apron strings, despite being this guy in his early 30s, I think. And Shelley's there saying, I don't think we need to see each other again. And from the back room, his mum's calling out, "Has she gone yet? Make sure she's not stolen the phone money." And I think she like kisses him on the cheek, and his like final shot is there, just going, "Oh," putting his hand up to his cheek, like saying, "Oh, I'll never wash it again," kind of thing. That was so good. This
is the difference between a character and a caricature. We've mentioned it many times before on the show, how a comedic character is very rarely fully developed. And
yeah, with 2 episodes there, you got all you needed to know about Eric Gartside, and I would almost say that if he were to be like a character for a week or 2, it might just spoil it. You know? You never know. It was just like banger after banger with his line, and I leave that thinking, yeah, I was left wanting more, but maybe I'm glad that we didn't get it. So for me, that is my absolute all-time favourite Coronation Street cameo, celebrity appearance kind of thing. And if you haven't watched it, even though I just spoiled the whole thing for you, get onto YouTube and find it out. Interesting fact as well, Peter Kay had also appeared on Coronation Street in 2007 as a shop fitter.
I don't remember this. This was after.
Sorry, I didn't mean 2007. I mean 1997. I think it was as a shop fitter. So before
was that before he was famous?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he had many lines to say. So I love him, but I think second is going to be, as we mentioned before, so Ian McKellen. So did you enjoy him coming onto the cobbles?
He was great. I loved him. I really appreciated how seriously he took this role.
Yeah, he
didn't go, "I just want to come in and do a cameo and go."
No,
he wanted. I don't know what he wanted.
This is probably the most well-rounded big celebrity appearance.
It was a complete story.
Yeah, it was. It lasted like 3 weeks. I mean, I suppose it's comparable to Maureen Lipman coming on in 2002 playing Lillian Spencer, because she was also pretty well known. Maybe not at Ian McKellen's level, but she had 6-7 episodes in, out, did her thing, well remembered. But yeah, this was very much a well-developed character, Sir Ian McKellen's character, who played Lionel Hipkiss, aka Mel Hutchwright, because he was a bit of a con artist and he used a fake name. But apparently this was a story that was not necessarily created for him. I got a quote here from Alison Sinclair, who's head of publicity at Corrie at the moment, and back at the time she said, "This isn't something where we say, oh, who's available? Who can we get in next? The part of Mel Hutchwright was created before we knew Sir Ian McKellen was available. But when the part was created, it was clear Sir Ian would be ideal."
Now this wasn't like, Sir Ian McKellen's kind of star is fading and he's desperate for work. He's still incredibly famous, and 2005 was this
is peak Lord of the Rings era, wasn't it?
2 years after the final Lord of the Rings film came out.
Yeah, and then The Hobbit was still to come and stuff. Was he in The Hobbit? I've not seen it. I don't know. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So this was probably the biggest.
He was still a huge star.
Yeah.
Arguably bigger then than he is now. Because of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and I think you're right, what you said earlier, that he made the part his own so well that it
so
almost
excellent.
Was possible to forget this is Gandalf here.
He's an excellent performer.
Yeah.
And just like I feel like Maureen Lipman does, he didn't think of Coronation Street, or it feels as though he didn't think of Coronation Street as like a silly little, throwaway part or
No.
something that he's not going to take seriously. I truly believe he went into this with as much love and care and attention to the character that he was playing as he did something like Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Because if you watch him, he's just magnificent. He doesn't phone it in. He gives it all of his attention, and it's a really great story.
I'm trying to think. I've got this on the tip of my tongue, and I'm probably going to remember it after we finish recording. But there's some other actors. Oh, it's a little bit like, Michael Caine in the Muppet Christmas Carol. He didn't go into that role thinking, well, I'm just going to be on here with a bunch of Muppets. I'm going to ask about. It's a Christmas film, nice easy paycheck for me. Playing Scrooge, easy.
Are you calling the cast of Coronation Street a bunch of Muppets?
I would, of course not.
But no, there's definitely
He's spoken about how he took that role just as seriously as any other role, and by gum, you can tell. And I think this is just the same as Ian McKellen playing Lionel Hipkiss.
Yeah. So his character is an author, isn't he? The Weatherfield Book Club is reading different books, and they one of his books, Hard Grinding, was one of the things that they read. And so the author himself, Mel Hutchright, turns up a few weeks later and sort of spends 3 weeks endearing himself to some people with various elements of success. Gets some free drinks. He's telling them that he's writing a new book, but he's got
they're like his muses, aren't they?
He's got writer's block, so he's struggling, but he needs their help. And he stays with Emily. And he works in her front room where he's got a tape of like typewriting where he just sits around and does nothing.
Yeah.
He says, I need you guys to help me because I can't. My publisher wants some money so I can get this book published. So everyone donates to help out. And Ken's not buying it, is he? So he's very suspicious.
In the end, he's proven right. And there's this great denouement scene where everybody kind of says to Mel, to Lionel, whichever, I can't even remember which one was his real name. I think Lionel Hipkiss was his real name.
Yes,
we've rumbled you, this is who you are, and he just does this like scathing put down of each of them, like Ken talking about failure, you always wanted to be something more, and now you're just a trolley pusher or whatever, and it was so brilliantly done. The whole theatricality that comes when you book Ian McKellen for something was just perfect for this role, and it was so memorable. Again, I wouldn't want this kind of thing happening all the time, but that one for me was another absolute hit. As was next on my list Andrew Sachs, who played Ramsay Clegg for 27 episodes back in 2009. So I was kind of on the fence about, and this is where the lines gets blurred, isn't it? Is Andrew Sachs a celebrity guest appearance, or is he just an actor who comes onto Corrie? What would you say?
Andrew Sachs, I feel like, was a celebrity cameo. Now, he was most famous as playing Manuel in Fawlty Towers. He had done other things. He'd been in other things.
And he'd had a bit of beef with Jonathan Ross.
Well, this is what I'm just trying to get to, Michael. This was the year after he had been pranked, if that's what you want to call it, by Jonathan Ross and Russell Brand. And
radio hosts.
They phoned him up and left voice messages on his answer phone saying that Brand had slept with Andrew Sachs's granddaughter, and the whole thing was an enormous scandal. This was in the papers for a long time, so this was the year before he appeared, and I really think that Andrew Sachs, the nation kind of really felt a great affection. There was a great outpouring of love for Andrew Sachs, not just because he had this prank played on him, but because people kind of rediscovered their affection for him as Manuel. So I think that he was riding high on that kind of swelling of public affection.
And the role itself was very much a sympathetic role as well, wasn't it? It was absolutely heartbreaking what ended up happening. So the character of Ramsay was Norris's long lost brother, wasn't he? Who had, back in the war, been sent over to Australia to live by his mum Was it that he was she was unmarried at the time or something? I can't remember. But he then turns back up in Manchester or wherever to meet her in 1960, and after not seeing her son for all this time, and probably the shame and the guilt that came with sticking him on a plane or a boat or wherever to Australia, Mummy Cole ends up dying, and then Norris blames Ramsay for this, and they're estranged for the next 40 years or so. So he comes back to the show to try and reconnect with Norris, and he's just like the nicest guy, isn't he? He's not like overly sucky-uppy, martyrishly nice. He's just a gentle soul who wants to make amends with his brother. And of course, Norris was a bit of an arse, and didn't want to know, and is like still holding a grudge.
He felt was his. He didn't do anything wrong, even, did he?
No.
Ramsay was just a great Andrew Sachs. I'm glad he got to play this role, because I feel as though he's really only famous for this and Fawlty Towers. Now, I know he's done lots of other things, but these are by far the most prominent roles, and it really demonstrated what a charismatic and sympathetic performer he was. So he played Ramsay in a way that broke your heart, because he was, like you said, he was so gentle.
Yeah, and Norris, I mean, Norris was generally a loved character, wasn't he? In a way, I know some people absolutely hated him because he was so mean-spirited, but yeah, but it was absolutely in character for Norris to want to reject him, and Ramsay's trying so hard, and he has a little bit of a romance, doesn't he, with Emily?
I know.
And he tries to get a flat that he and Norris can stay together in, and Norris is like, no, bog off back to Australia, don't want to know, I'm not interested. He goes off, and then the sting in the tail is that he's had a brain tumour all this time, and he dies on the plane en route to Australia. And then there's such a good episode, the next episode or a couple of episodes later, I can't remember, when the news gets back to Weatherfield, and Norris is kind of shamed because of
when he goes through the trunk.
Yeah.
When he gets Ramsay's trunk that had been travelling with him, and he realises how important rebuilding this relationship with his brother was to Ramsay, and he realises what an arsehole he was.
And Emily lost out on a possible last chance of love.
And Emily's notoriously very Christian and forgiving, but she had a tight-lipped word to say.
Yeah, and is it the last scene of the episode, I think, where Emily's listening to Waltzing Matilda, to tie in with the whole Australian theme of it, and it was so poignant. Really poignant. Really fantastic guest slot, and the sort of thing that I would say, oh yeah, I mean, I would forget. Perfect. I wouldn't say that. I mean, I've never even seen Fawlty Towers, believe it or not, but I of course know who Manuel is, and enough time has passed that I wasn't constantly thinking that's Manuel. So although it counts as a celebrity guest,
I don't know why they cast him for this, but I will say I'm gonna find it very hard for anyone to make me believe that he wouldn't have been cast as Ramsay Clegg had he not gained so much, column inches because of what bloody Jonathan Ross
and Russell Brand did the year before.
Yeah.
Couple of
but,
other.
In a sense, it's sort of an unhappy silver lining that we got Ramsay Clegg. From this.
And Andrew Sachs died a few years ago, didn't he? So it was really nice
2016.
that he was able to get this beloved role. Just as I say,
he was
27
in
episodes. We don't talk about that.
Noddy Holder.
Yeah, so there's a couple of others, including Noddy Holder, famous shouter in Slade, making an appearance in one episode in 2000, the live episode.
So what was the song? Is it I Wish It Could Be...
here it is, Merry Christmas. He's the one that goes, it's Christmas.
Is that the same one as I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day?
No, that's
I always get
that's
those.
Wizard.
Those two are to me, I love both of those songs, but they're very interchangeable in my mind. So Noddy Holder was in the 2000 live episode. He played Stan Potter, who is Dougie Ferguson's friend, who delivers a fake preservation order to the residents to help them save the cobbles from being tarmac.
This is when the cobbles are being tarmac, wasn't it? And they
This is
think
when
they can get
Peter
a preservation.
comes back.
This is Peter coming back in the same episode. Well, first episode played by Chris Gascoigne, I think. And Noddy Holder comes out of a car going, "Hey, I got this preservation order," and it is a fake one, and that is, 100%. Look at us, we've got Noddy Holder. Bit of an odd choice because he is, that is a beloved song, but I'm going to say it's a bit of a gimmicky song, and that was probably a little bit of a gimmicky casting as well. But for an anniversary episode, a live anniversary episode, don't really care about that one.
Nope.
It was fine. One that I really didn't enjoy was Norman Wisdom, who showed up playing a character called Ernie Crabbe for an episode in 2001. And Norman Wisdom, very famous, back in the day, comedian, wasn't he? As an 89-year-old coming onto Coronation Street, I have to say, not very funny. He was actually on my birthday episode, 2nd of July 2001. And he basically, the story is that Jack's got some exercise equipment. Vera's made him get some, and Jack's now trying to sell it off to someone else. And Norman Wisdom's first scene is he's there in like a vest and shorts and a headband, and he kind of is huffing and puffing across the cobbles going up to number 9. And I can't remember, there's a cat, Audrey I think it is kind of watching him going, who's this weirdo? And then he goes into number 9, the door opens and he falls into the house because he wasn't looking at it. It wasn't very funny. And the second scene is in the lounge of number 9, and he's basically just wheezing away and laughing at how everything he says is funny, but it actually really, really wasn't. It was a really painfully not at all funny, and
well, in your opinion,
I've seen other people have a similar opinion. I mean, Norman Wisdom means nothing to me. I have no kind of affection for him. Can I say
he's legendary?
I know he is, but personally, I have no affection for him. And I remember watching this on my birthday that year, thinking, this is poor. But and this is the sort of thing I was like, don't just get anybody in for an episode. But it was definitely.
What do you mean? Don't just get anybody in?
I don't
listen. There's no way that you're the target audience for Norman Wisdom.
No,
he was a very particular style of kind of musical performer who comedy probably didn't click with you at all.
I don't think I've ever seen anything he's done. I
would like anybody who was a fan of Norman Wisdom to tell me whether this was funny to them, because it wasn't for you. I know it wasn't.
So it's
not surprising that you didn't find it funny. Yeah. I'm just saying that.
Okay. So that's kind of our definite list that I came up with of.
And I just to say I don't remember watching it. I haven't seen it since.
That was July 2001. That was like 3 months before we met.
I've got no idea whether it was good.
I will show it to you another time later on, and then you can judge for yourself. So that's my list of absolute 100%. This is a celebrity casting. Look at us, everybody. We've got so and so. But then I've also come up with a few others that were like, was this a celebrity casting, or was it just they've hired someone who happens to be well known? Like, for example, Honor Blackman, for example, made a couple of appearances in 2004. So she's well known for playing Pussy Galore in James Bond in Goldfinger. She was in the Avengers. Goldfinger, sorry. I was getting it confused with Goldmember.
So why do you think this is different? Because this to me feels like...
I don't think
a cameo, because I don't think you realise how famous Honor Blackman is.
Oh, I know. She was also in. She was in The Upper Hand. I remember watching her in that on ITV when I was growing up.
Why have you put this in a different section then?
Just because I think that she got the role as it was. To me, it didn't feel like, hey, look at us. Here's somebody doing a cameo. She was in 5 episodes, but it felt like the part really could have gone to anyone else. And I know that we've said that of, say, Sarah McKellen's part could have gone to someone else. But it's not necessarily one that people remember and go, oh, remember when they got Honor Blackman? I think she kind of goes alongside, say, Rula Lenska, for example, as being, yes, she's big before, but yeah, it's not
I don't know.
Well, it's fun. There's no, hard and fast. This is the cut-off point, is there? So she played Ruler Romanoff, who was an old friend of Rita's, who Norris ends up thinking she fancies him. She invites him to her house, but it turns out, and Rita as well, but it turns out it's a swingers party, and much embarrassment is had from Norris and Rita. But I quite enjoyed her. I knew who she was.
Honor Blackman is fabulous.
Yeah. June Whitfield.
Again, she was in Absolutely Fabulous.
Yeah, she played Mother in Absolutely Fabulous, didn't she? And also well known for the Sun Life Over 60s plan adverts. If you watch certain satellite channels, she died a couple of years ago. She's
she's in the Carry On films.
Yeah.
She was in Terry and June.
Yeah, so she came into Coronation Street in 2010 for 3 episodes, one episode plus a double episode. And basically she was just there to announce Blanche's death, and she was also there at her funeral. I think this worked really well, and a Corrie spokesperson at the time said, "We felt it fitting to have someone of June's calibre to be involved in Maggie's swan song." And I think that's right, because Maggie Young, who played Blanche, it was such a tragedy. It was her death. She was a real beloved character. She's one of the most famous, beloved. She was a character that at the time, everybody loved Blanche, and huge loss to the programme. And I think it was absolutely fitting to have a big name, somebody like June Whitfield, come on as a cameo, I suppose, to do her bit. It could have been played by anybody, but to have June on it as a Corrie character, I think that was quite cool. Do you remember? I know it was only a little.
No, I really don't remember her being in it.
No, I haven't rewatched the scenes again since. If you're somebody to say, what did June Whitfield play? I'd be like, oh yeah, she was the one that did this. But I don't remember much about her. The part wasn't about her. It was let's do this in tribute to Blanche and Maggie. But June at the time said, "Oh, I admire them all. I think they have an amazing schedule, and I don't know how they do it. I only hope I don't let them down." Well, you didn't. We just don't really remember much about it 13 years later, June. But never mind. Do you remember Paddy McGuinness being in it? And
I really do.
I think that this probably does count as a celebrity one, that along the same lines as Ian McKellen and Peter Kay.
I think these all count, because I honestly think that these. Here's the way I work it out. If they use the name of the actor and they expect you to know who it is before they're cast, I think it counts as a celebrity. Because they expect you to, when they say, "We've got Paddy McGuinness," they expect you to go, "Wow, Paddy McGuinness." They don't expect you to go,
That's true. I mean, but then you could also say that we've got Tony Maudsley.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want him to be a celebrity cast. That just happens to be, here's an actor that you almost certainly know because you're an ITV watcher. So Paddy McGuinness's character, I think, kind of just wound me up.
I remember you having a great deal to say about it, yeah.
Time has, this was 8 years ago. He was a comedian. Is he well loved? I don't know. I don't love him.
He was the host of Take Me Out.
Yeah, he's an actor. He was in Phoenix Nights alongside Peter Kay, and he was just kind of, his character was to irritate other characters, and he did the same with me. So this was a load of characters, Tyrone, I can't remember how else. Craig was there. That's right. They went on a camping trip, didn't
Beth
they?
There? I think Beth must have gone.
Yeah, Beth was there, and it was just a funny little summer storyline throwaway thing, because this was, Kirk was there as well, wasn't he? And this is where they meet the Buddhist monk in the woods. Do you remember that?
I do remember that was weird. But I feel like my brain wants me to forget.
Yeah. So Paddy McGuinness's character, Dougie, was just playing, a Bear Grylls kind of survival expert type who was saying, "Oh yeah, we need to get up at 3 o'clock and take a 5-mile trek in the dark," and that kind of thing. And he just irritated people, really.
Well, he had a daughter called Caitlin.
Yes, well, she was. That's
and
true.
And she was in it longer than he was, because and you knew that he was never going to come back. And Caitlin refers to him a few times, and you're like, they ain't getting Paddy McGuinness back.
Yeah, because Caitlin ends up being a really sweet girlfriend for Craig, didn't she? I really liked that relationship.
Yeah, she was an artist, and she made Craig. Here's how to tell if it's a celebrity casting or just an actor casting. If you go, they ain't getting him back for that. It's a celebrity casting.
Yeah, that's true. I was really disappointed when Caitlin left. She only did about 30 episodes or so in total, but she had something really quite good there and nice, and they bonded well, and they had great chemistry, her and Craig. I'm not seeing her. She ended up.
She's a painter of Maddie's mural around my.
Oh, you might be right there, possibly. I don't remember whether it was her or whether it was.
Well, I remember them getting involved in graffiti and.
Yeah, she ends up just going to university. She says that I don't have strong enough feelings for you, Craig. But anyway, Paddy McGuinness, I'm sure some people loved him, but he just wound me up. My quote from Paddy McGuinness is, "I absolutely loved it. I loved that character, and if something came around again, I'd definitely look at it. Maybe again as a short stint." So there we go. He said he'd be up for it. I just think that it's impossible not to compare that character to Peter Kay's character, and Paddy's character sadly come off a lot worse. Partly it's to do with, I guess, the characters that he was interacting with, and Shelley alongside Eric were absolute gold for that episode, but to have him there with Craig and Kirk and Beth, not the most popular of characters necessarily, it just all turned into a bit of a mess. Speaking of which, are we allowed to talk about Sarah Harding?
Oh,
R.I.P. Sarah Harding. Now, absolutely and genuinely, honestly, really gutted and about the fact that she passed away just a few years ago at such a young age as well.
I know. So she was more famously in Girls Aloud.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, Girls Aloud.
And she appeared in Coronation Street in 2015 as Joni, who was...
She was Robert's
girlfriend.
Or ex or what? No, she was married because she was Joni Preston.
Didn't she have a restaurant in Nottingham?
Something like that. I can't remember.
And they hired her, and I don't feel like they really... It didn't work very well. I don't think she was a very great actress in this role.
Absolutely not. She was dreadful.
We've made note. We haven't hidden what we thought of her performance. But as the years have gone by, I've really grown to appreciate her. Her just willingness to give it a go. And I think honestly, if somebody said to me, "Do you want to be in Coronation Street?" I'd be like, "Yeah." Worry about whether I can act later.
Joni as a character and Sarah Harding's performance playing her, it has is special to the podcast. It's gone down in in Conversation Street history, and we had the what we now call the Bobbins Awards was called the Joni Awards for a good 3-4 years or so, just named after how awful her performance was.
A lot of affection for
we really do
in the role of Joni.
But I would say that this was absolutely a stunt casting, but I think it was probably in a time where Girls Aloud were on a bit of a break, and some of the members of the band were saying, trying to spread their wings and say, well, I can be an actress too.
I really also wonder whether this put a bit of a pause on them hiring based on fame instead of on suitability for the role. There is no doubt.
I would have thought it must have made them kind of think.
Sarah Harding was incredibly talented and very beautiful, but she wasn't a talented actress.
No, and the sad thing is as well.
And who knows whether she would have been able to develop that talent if she'd been given enough time.
Exactly.
But chucking her into her first role, I don't even know if she was in anything before this as an actress. Going, do you want to be in a soap? And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind a go.
Time, yeah,
not really a good
millions of viewers
fit.
And she kind of came away from it knowing that it hadn't gone so well as well. I mean, one quote I found from her said, it's such an iconic show, an institution, and when you're going on as a short-term character, it's hard to get into your stride. That was a real tough gig for me, because it was like I was playing a part that wasn't a million miles away from the real me, and Corrie shot at a very fast pace, and they literally threw me in at the deep end. In fact, my very first day on set was pretty much all screaming, crying and slapping. Still, I enjoyed working with Kate Ford, who played Tracy. She's a lovely girl, and we ended up having a proper giggle together. So she had a nice time, but it felt like it's a kind of chuck her in the ocean, sink or swim kind of situation, and it wasn't a good look for her. It wasn't a good look for Coronation Street.
It's one of those things where it surely gives you a greater appreciation for how hard the actors work and the fact that there is so much natural talent.
Yeah,
involved.
Absolutely.
You can't
like we were saying earlier, if they put us in there trying to order a drink, there's no way we'd to deliver the simplest of line well.
I think most people kind of would, fancy themselves as if I was in this role, or what would I look like, or would I be able to do this? I look so easy. But I think that's the gift of being an actor, is you make it look so easy. Yeah. But when you actually, like, I dare you, if you think that you're a good actor, to record yourself just reading a line out and see whether you are actually any good or not.
A couple of other little ones just to mention. We had James Fleet, most famous for playing Hugo in Vicar of Dibley. Wasn't he also in like Notting Hill or Four Weddings or something like that? So he played a character called Robbie Sloane in 2010 in the climax of the Tony Gordon Factory Siege saga. Ended up getting shot by him.
This didn't feel like they went, James Fleet's got to be in Corrie, got to write him a role.
No. This was they needed a henchman.
Yeah.
This is our big and a 50th anniversary year, massive story, climax, Britain's Got Talent week kind of thing. Let's just push the boat out a little bit more and get a big name on there. I don't remember much about his character particularly, but I think I remember watching it and being able to forget that it's just Hugo from Corrie, so I think he did a pretty good job with that.
From Vicar of
Dibley, sorry, yeah. We had Bernard Cribbins playing Wally Bannister in 2003, another really famous actor. I mean, for me, Bernard, for me, he playing Donna Noble's granddad in Doctor Who is the role that I'll always remember him for, but he's been in plenty of other things over the year, and so Wally Bannister was this kind of weird, lechy old man who dates Blanche for a bit in 2003. He's going to be coming on ITV3 at some point in the next year or two, and then he kind of comes on to Tracy, and there's just this weird story where Tracy...
Was that the necklace thing?
What was there? Was there a necklace?
No, that was
thing?
No.
You think it was something else? No, yeah. So it's just kind of a bit weird, and Tracy thinks that this guy is mega rich because he takes her back to this mansion kind of place, and so she's like, "Yeah, I'll date a octogenarian if it means that I can get this high life." But then kind of the sting in the tail is that he's actually just the gardener or something there, and he's married as well.
I pride myself on being able to find a commonality in almost anybody, but definitely with very rich octogenarians. I have an affinity for them.
I think that's another one that's got to be a bit of a celebrity casting, although it doesn't feel like that's something you trumpet, but it's something like you should just be proud of because he's a great actor.
I think the most famous recent one was Vic Reeves, who played
Jim Moore.
Yeah, played Colin Callan in 2017.
Yeah,
with Moira.
That role wasn't great, was it? I don't remember liking this. I think Vic Reeves is a beloved comic and television host. I don't know. Does he do much these
days?
I'm not sure.
Very satirical, tongue-in-cheek, sort of anti-establishment kind of a guy.
Yeah. He did like what was he on? Nevermind the Buzzcocks or something like that. Vic Reeves and Mortimer were the double act. Yeah, of the mid-90s. Very surrealist. Also did the Renault Clio adverts, if you remember, with Nicole Papa. Nicole. One of them at least. I just didn't get on with the character of Colin, and part of the problem was, again, the storyline that he got put into and the characters that he had to do a lot of work with. It felt very ornery and kind of itchy, you know what I mean? Like, it felt like it's scratchy and it's not. This doesn't fit. He doesn't gel here. So his story was he was involved in Norris and Mary's scam to make people think that they were married so that she could win a around the world tour so she could go and see her son Jude or something. Yeah, anyway, Norris and Mary, a bit like we had recently with Kelly and Ardy, yes, pretending that they were married or trying to get married or something so they could win this competition, and Colin's the one that is the head sponsor of the competition, so he's just like playing a bit of a celebrity himself there. There's a weird part to the story later in the year where he thinks that Norris could actually be his dad because they share certain mannerisms or something, and I was like, what? No, that's just silly. That doesn't work. This character isn't charming me. I want to go back and watch it again because I'm not sure. I mean, this is the trouble, okay? I like Vic Reeves. I don't think I ever disliked him. But sometimes it feels like you think, oh yeah,
and then they have an uphill. Sometimes a celebrity casting has an uphill battle to convince you that they're doing it for the right reasons, and it's added baggage that is kind of not always they're not always able to overcome.
Yeah. I was glad when he left, I have to say, but unhappy that he took Moira with him. Although Moira did come back, didn't she? A couple of months later. Moira, we were just watching some of her scenes the other day. Moira from the medical centre, and just from a couple of the Pat Phelan get to know Pat party scene, another one in the Rovers. I'd just forgotten about. I always think, oh yeah, I love Moira, but I'd kind of forgotten a bit about what she was like.
Or why you liked her so much.
Why did I like her?
But she's excellent.
Oh my gosh, just absolutely
so funny,
amazing.
Such natural comedic timing.
It didn't come across as like we maybe get with Mary, these like, oh, here comes a joke, or here comes a funny story about her mum. She was just the perfect comedic role.
Yeah.
But that wasn't all about telling jokes.
I think, we often give a lot of credit just to the actors, and they definitely deserve it. But the writing for her was just on point.
Louisa Patikas. I remember because they kind of get together, don't they? And there was a scene where they had this big old snog in the Rovers, or the cabin, was it? And do you remember the Soapy Slip-Ups episode? I think it was, but it's where they had the outtake of that kiss, and they were just snogging and snogging and snogging and snogging, and they were like full on.
No, I don't remember that.
It was funny, but no, that really didn't work for me. But like you said, it was maybe a bit of an uphill battle for him. People like Vic Reeves, he's a host, isn't he? Is he an actor? I don't know. Is he an artist?
Can I say he was perfectly decent, a great actor. I thought he performed.
I thought he acted well.
Yeah.
I don't
think it was that was the problem.
It didn't feel right. The story,
no.
Like you said,
it felt like they were going,
itchy.
How can we make him in? How can we get him in the show? Or that didn't work, let's try this. Oh, that didn't work, let's try this. And it just felt like they were trying to ram a square peg.
You can't win them all. And you could say
and
that.
And he said he was a lifelong fan of Corrie, and he said he's watched the very first one, but he was not even 2 when it was on, so perhaps it was a fake memory, I'm not sure.
What he experienced over a short period of time is what some other actors have had to contend with who go on to play bigger roles. So I want to kind of segue now just briefly into other characters that have come into the show, other actors who were well known beforehand for playing a different type of character, or or just something else, being a celebrity of a different ilk, and having to have this uphill battle to convince people, no, I can do this, and I'm not the person. I do more than just what you see me as.
Well, you're talking about people who've played regular characters.
Yes, exactly. So Les Dennis
as Michael Rodwell.
Yeah, playing Michael Rodwell is kind of the ultimate example of that.
So much abuse on Twitter for playing Michael, and it always bothered me. It still does. I don't know whether those people ruined his experience. Les Dennis genuinely was a Coronation Street fan for a long time before he became in the show, and it just kind of breaks my heart how cruel people were to him, because I really enjoyed him as Michael Rodwell. So did you.
He was superb.
He was.
And I think one of the things that I like most about it is I was also very wary when the casting was announced, because for me, like lots of other people, look at him and say, he's just a game show host. Yeah. He just did Family Fortunes.
He's not just a game show host. He is a very popular.
Yeah, I know. But
famous.
These people think they can just get. We don't have to say Anne Deck getting roles on programs like this.
You wait.
But he in a few years leading up to Coronation Street had done other acting roles, hadn't he? And he tried to distance himself from the game show host persona, and he'd done some quite serious acting role, and he has gone on to do more serious stuff since.
I think he was excellent. Nuanced, subtle.
Yeah, the relationship that they struck up between him and Gail and the whole Restorative Justice storyline, so good, and that absolutely to me shows that
the response that he had on Twitter, some of the people and the way they spoke about him or to him, more to the point. It's one of those moments where you just feel like you're not living in the same reality as other people.
When I would never tweet at Jim Moir, Vic Reeves, and say, you're rubbish on Coronation Street. But
it's not that necessarily. It's more like, why are you seeing something completely different to what I'm seeing? Because Michael Rodwell Les Dennis was Michael Rodwell in that show.
I don't get how people can watch him and go,
oh, he's not
no,
very good.
He was rubbish.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Anyone else that kind of is in the same sort of ilk as that, where you think they had a massive uphill struggle to be accepted as a different long-term character?
The biggest, most prominent one to me is Michelle Collins as Stella Price. Now this was another thing where I feel like it dampened, it kind of like poured water on the whole idea of Michelle Collins, who was a very popular big name in EastEnders, coming to take a similarly high profile role in Coronation Street. And has this ever happened since, or has, you know, Stella Price just ruined transitions for almost everyone?
Well, we also had Claire King coming in from Emmerdale, didn't we?
I mean,
and that was a
the other
character
person
that
I
didn't
can
really
think of
work.
Is, you know, Sally Ann Matthews, who was...
Yeah, she was bigger in Emmerdale.
She was in Emmerdale, and she came back to Corrie,
originally
but she started off in Corrie.
Yeah.
And she's done it... I don't remember... I don't know what the reaction to her in Emmerdale was, but she's certainly brilliant in Coronation Street.
Yeah.
But, Michelle Collins, she couldn't do the accent. You know, I can sympathise with her there. I don't know why they decided to make her do the accent. There's literally no reason why somebody has to pretend to be Northern to be in Coronation Street.
Yeah, I mean, she's a good actress, but this role it didn't suit her, and it was a boring role, wasn't it? That's part of the problem.
The most boring character.
Michael Rodwell had some great stuff, partly because he was tied up in the whole Phelan story for a lot of his stint there, whereas... You know, she was landlady, so that should mean big things, but actually they didn't have a lot for her to do, and she just spent a lot of the time wearing beige and drinking cups of tea and offering words of advice to people in the back room.
I don't know if this is the case, but the vibe that I got was that everyone was intimidated by the concept of Michelle Collins, and they were scared to take risks or do anything with her, because they wanted to try to make her a very likeable person, and in the pursuit of that, they just never did anything interesting, because they were, oh, you can't do this, Michelle Collins. But why? I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that they would do that, but that's the impression that you were left with.
Yeah, I mean, you also had, when she came in, it was a bit of a double whammy, because you had Sue Johnston playing her mum, Gloria, didn't you? And she was very famous in this country for playing, well, firstly for playing Sheila Grant in Brookside, another soap that was killed off in the late 90s, I think, and then most famously, I suppose, Barbara Royal in The Royal Family, really beloved BBC sitcom. And
I thought she was good.
I thought that she was okay.
Now, I watched The Royal Family, and so I had this, you know, I knew who she was, but I still think she did a great job as Gloria Price. She's much better than
she was
Stella.
better than Stella.
Yeah.
I can't say that I miss her in the slightest. I wasn't too... I mean, the most gutting thing about her exit was how she left with Dennis Tanner in the back of that car, and don't get me started on that.
Well,
but
we won't then.
It just felt like the whole of that era with Stella and Carl and Gloria in the Rovers, it's just best forgotten. But what came out of it that worked really well, of course, is Eva Price, who, you know, she grew out of that mess of the Prices to become this Coronation Street icon for a few years.
So, okay. Right, can I move on to some other groups of people? So, now, we rag on the casting of Sarah Harding as Joni because we say it doesn't make sense that you think that you can automatically translate from being a singer to being an actor. But there are three very prominent people who I think prove that you can do that, and those are Kim Marsh, Keith Duffy, and Shane Ward.
Yes, yeah, definitely. You're right. I've not even written Shane Ward down here.
Now, Shane Ward,
that's a really good.
You haven't written him down, but you know, arguably not as famous perhaps as Kim Marsh and Keith Duffy before.
I don't know.
You know. I don't think so either. I'm trying to give you a break for not writing him down. Now, the fact that we used to refer to him as Shane Ward proves that he was literally famous for a very specific reason before he appeared on Coronation Street.
For being in
And we never really liked Michelle that much, but you cannot deny Kim Marsh's talent.
She did a good job. She was a good actress.
I'm not
the character was just
she played an irritating character in a very irritating way.
Yeah.
Which, authentic. I think Kim Marsh was great. I think she's beautiful and she is talented. And Keith Duffy as well. What band was he in?
He was in Boyzone.
So Boyzone, massive.
Yeah, late
massive,
90s,
massive.
Boyzone, it was Boyzone at the same time as the Spice Girls and Steps and all that lot. So it was properly like my era of pop music.
Band.
My sister loved Boyzone.
What songs did they do?
Well, they did quite a few cover versions, like Words and things, but they also did.
It's only words.
Yeah, but they did. Picture of You.
Who else was in Boyzone?
Going Gets Tough. Ronan Keating, Stephen Gately.
Yeah.
Some other ones.
Yeah. So Keith Duffy was Kieran McCarthy, was an old ship friend of Peter.
Yeah, from the Navy.
And it's really funny because they were a similar age, weren't they? But when I think of Kieran McCarthy, I think he's young, but actually he probably would.
Well, he was 20 years ago
when he was in
the show.
He's like preserved in time, like a mosquito.
I think he was the first example that I had of somebody who I knew very, very well who they were from someone else coming onto Coronation Street, because that was 2002 I think he first made an appearance, and I'd been watching Corrie for 8 years at that point, and this is the first time that an outsider, and I was like, I can't stop thinking of that as being Keith Duffy. But fair play to him, I think that although it was always there slightly in the back of my mind, he was actually very, very charming and a surprisingly good actor. I think he did a great job with all of his bits with lovely Sunita and things.
See, to me, because I didn't really follow boy bands and stuff. I never felt like he felt like a gimmick, or I think that's a good rule of thumb, is that.
Did they feel gimmicky?
Do you think? Could you tell that they were hired because of their notoriety rather than their acting? No, because I think he did a great job. I wouldn't have been able to say, I don't think anyone could have said, if you showed a scene with him in it and then you said who here was in a boy band before they were in Corrie, he wouldn't have stuck out as like people saying, he doesn't deserve to be there. He was great.
I think he was fine, and I felt that Michelle, I hated the character of Michelle, but I think Kim Marsh did a good job.
Yeah.
And Shane Ward as well. He was fine. I didn't mind him as a character, but obviously his exit storyline showed just what a talent that guy is. And a bit of a loss to the programme, and very, very memorable.
But also incredibly brave of him to take on something like that.
Yeah. So all three of those in their own way showed that yes, you can have a pop star taking on this kind of role, an acting role, and make a success of it.
But it does make me wonder whether those three, I don't know what the chronology of this is, did that make them think that Sarah Harding was gonna...
Well, possibly. I mean, Sarah Harding was always... Joni Lee's character was always ever going to be a couple of episodes, wasn't it?
I don't know.
But then you get some... I mean, Kieran, when he first came into it, he was only in it for a very, very short stint, a couple of weeks, I think. And then he went away for a bit and then returned back in full time, so he must have made an impact.
What I don't want is for them to just never consider anybody based on, one bad example, when actually... You just have to be good at acting.
Yeah, I don't know who's who in the charts at the moment. If you were to give me
anybody.
like this, yeah, exactly, the top 20 from this week, and say who's all these, sing these songs, I wouldn't have a clue.
Don't know.
Who are these artists?
I couldn't
Probably
name you
haven't got a clue either.
A number one from the last 3 years, I don't know.
3, God, I'd go probably back 10. And it's really sad, it just makes me feel really old, doesn't it? Because I remember being a teenager in the late 90s, and I was like, have MTV or the box on all the time, and I knew everything that was going on in pop music. And then we kind of reached mid-2000s, and I just went, no, I've got no idea anymore.
I do recall as a younger person thinking, why wouldn't you care about this? This is the most important thing there is. And now I'm like... I don't care. I literally don't care.
Well, we watched the King's Coronation concert on Sunday, didn't we? And that had a mixture from across the eras.
Did it? I think it was mostly oldies.
Well, it had Ollie Murs, and I I recognised his face, but I would not know any of his songs. If Ollie Murs came into Coronation Street as a character,
what songs does he do?
I'd be like, I know who you are, but I won't have too many preconceptions. But honestly, most other people probably in the top. I mean, is he still relevant in the charts? I've literally got no idea. But if you were to pick anyone else from the charts and say, here they are on Coronation Street, I'd be like, whatever, I don't know them from Adam.
Well, it still didn't stop Ed Sheeran from ruining Game of Thrones.
I've talked about the fact that, you know, Craig Charles, really well known for Red Dwarf, huge part of my childhood, completely sold me on the character of Lloyd, even though he was fairly similar, kind of a bit of a charming ladies' man, maybe a little bit of a slob, same as Lister was. I completely could separate those two characters because I just think he was amazing.
Well, he wasn't a comedic character like Lister was.
Not in the same way, but he was kind of cheerful, wasn't he? He could raise a laugh. He was a kind of, he lit up a scene.
We've mentioned Maureen Lipman a few times already.
Rula Lenska, another one. I know of her when she first came into Corrie in 2009. It's like, I think I've heard of people talking about her, and that was as far as her fame went to me. The same with Nigel Havers, really.
Nigel Havers is.
They went through a period about 10-15 years ago of getting some of these, like, I put Nigel Havers, Rula Lenska, June Whitfield, Honor Blackman. They're all of the similar kind of genre, the same sort of category, aren't they?
Yeah.
As people who were glamorous back in the 70s and 80s, and so therefore they're going to make an interesting kind of character now. I don't know, but they all work brilliantly for me.
Can I give you another good way of judging whether somebody is actually a celebrity in their own right, or if their Wikipedia page mentions Coronation Street in the initial rundown of their life, that makes me think that they're not that famous. So Nigel Havers, I would say, is very famous, but actually no. In his Wikipedia page, it just say he's quite well known for Coronation Street. But he's been in lots of other things.
That's the thing. Like, sometimes they actually really do, and being in the middle of the Coronation Street bubble as we are, it's difficult to see. Does everybody else recognise him from this? Is this become one of his big roles? I hear he was famous beforehand. Is this as big as what he used to be famous for? I don't really know.
I think Nigel Havers is kind of like Rula Lenska and a few other people where they're just very posh and they're the go-to posho. If you want somebody who immediately just radiates privilege and wealth.
Another famous one that did very, very well, Roy Hudd. So he'd had a massive career before.
The opposite of Nigel Havers.
Yes. So he played Archie Shuttleworth, and he had a huge career on stage and screen. He was a comedian. He was
music hall.
Yeah, music hall. He was very instrumental in keeping the music hall traditions going in the 20th century at least. And he was, I guess, probably a bit of a celebrity casting when they got when they came up with the character of Archie Shuttleworth. He was obviously absolutely superb.
He was a household name. Household name.
Yeah. Not so much with me, so I was like, he's just Archie to me. But
to bear in mind when it comes to, especially, as you go back in time, is some of these celebrities are quite regional. So some people are going to be a lot more beloved and famous in the north than in the south. Yeah,
well, South had Bradley Walsh. So when he came in playing Danny Baldwin, it's like, hey, he's that geezer off the telly. I think that he was fairly good. I'm not, I was never a huge Danny Baldwin fan, but I think he was one that I was never completely able to shake the idea that this is just some geezer coming into Coronation Street to do a bit of a...
Well, he was a TV presenter just this, he did Will and Fortune in 1997, which was before his role in Corrie, which started in 2004.
Yeah, he was most well known for that, I think.
He was a footballer before all of that, just like Gordon Ramsay.
Anyway, so that's kind of it, I would say, for celebrity Corrie cameo kind of appearances on Coronation Street. But just before we finish, let's flip the table a little bit and look at it from another angle.
People who cut their teeth.
Exactly. People who grew on to be famous for being much, much more famous than they ever were in Coronation Street.
And I just want to say one thing, that I really feel like there are plenty of people in Corrie now that we might end up talking about in a future, 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now when we're still doing the podcast. Before they were famous, they were in Coronation Street because, there is no end of talent in the show. And if, the most obvious recent example is Doctor Who.
Millie Gibson, yes,
who is about to be catapulted into stardom.
I would think so, and that's going to be like she played a role in Corrie for a few years and has got bright future. Tina McIntyre, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name completely.
The girl.
Michelle Keegan,
and Sam, the actor. The actor.
Sam, which Sam?
The Sam, little Sam with
Jude Riordan, yeah.
Yeah, Jude Riordan,
famous for being in Brassic. But Corrie has
Sorry,
produced.
I don't have any memory.
That's all right. We all know. Everyone knows that you're not very good at remembering names. But Corrie has produced these big names like Sarah Lancashire.
Yes.
What's her
the one
face?
Who played Karen.
The one who played Karen, exactly. Saran Jones. I just need a few seconds. But I am nearly 40 now. My memory's going. But
nearly.
Looking back to the very early days, there are some people who had tiny roles on Corrie that went on to big things.
And we're not trying to claim that it was due to Coronation Street that they became famous. No. But we are saying that perhaps it proves that you need a certain level of intrinsic charisma and talent to be able to get cast at all.
So we've been watching some 1961 Corrie recently, and we've seen Davy Jones later to be in The Monkees playing Colin Lomax, and he was in it for like one episode. So he was Ina Sharple's grandson, and he was just a bit of a scamp that wanted to get into the biscuit jar or something, and Ina's trying to pump him for details about what the rest of the family are saying about her, so she can decide whether to put him in the will or not. It was literally a one-off appearance, and when the character later came into the show for another few episodes in the 70s, he was played by someone else. So we have got a future monkey on Coronation Street.
Now I really like seeing Prunella Scales, and I picked her out. I didn't realise that she was going to be in it.
Who's that? We recognise that face.
I think that's Sybil. Sybil 40 from 40 Towers. Now again, you said you haven't watched it, but she was a bus conductress, Eileen Hughes, who was fighting for Harry Hewitt's affections. There was a massive rush on women trying to get into Harry Hewitt's pants.
Widower,
Florrie Hewitt,
eligible.
Florrie Lindley, and Concepta Riley, who eventually bagged her man.
Yeah.
And also this bus conductress played by Prunella Scales, who's called Eileen.
Yeah. So Sybil Fawlty was a huge role for Prunella Scales, but she did loads of stuff. I liked her in. Do you remember when she was in the Tesco adverts with Jane Horrocks playing Mother?
Oh, I wish I had this kind of natural charisma and charm that all these people have. Patricia Routledge.
Another 1961, yeah. So
she obviously famously plays.
Is it obviously? I don't know. She is for me. I mean, Keeping Up Appearances was part of my childhood because they filmed it in my village. But Patricia Routledge, beloved actress, comedic actress, absolutely still alive in her 90s now, but back in 1961 she played cafe owner Sylvia Snape for 4 episodes. Again, we've watched all of those recently. She was working with Doreen Lostock, wasn't she? And apparently there's evidence, according to Corripedia, that Corrie wanted to keep her on as a long-term character, but Routledge had no particular interest in committing to that. And I thought she was great. I think she was very charming.
There was some definite trademark mouth movements that we were so treated funny. To. It did feel
we
like
were watching it, and she kind of curls in her bottom lip and sticks her top teeth out, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's what Patricia Routledge does 40 years later. In 1961, Patricia Routledge was still making that funny mouth movement. It was brilliant. We also had a little bit later in the 60s Molly Sugden, who played Nellie Harvey, kind of the rival landlady to Annie Walker. Much better known later on in the 70s for playing Mrs. Slocum in Are You Being Served? And then also we had Ron Jenkins, the character being played by mega award-winning Hollywood actor Ben Kingsley. So Ron Jenkins
he's like, I think another indicator of how famous you are is you allowed to touch them?
You can't,
You can't touch Ben
Can't
Kingsley.
touch Ben Kingsley,
You wouldn't get anywhere near him.
No. So he played Ron Jenkins between 66 to 67. Handful of episodes. He has a bit of a fling with Valerie Barlow. So
Nice
I'm
one.
thinking maybe he can come back and
Bring them both
settle
back.
old scores with Ken.
Oh no, Val's dead.
Yes. He said of his time in Coronation Street, Corrie takes place in Salford, and I was brought up 5 miles from there. It's very much in my background and my territory, so to be part of such an iconic series early on in my career was wonderful. We had great writers and extraordinary directors. It was like live theatre. We ran from one part of the studio to the other to keep the tapes rolling. Quite marvellous. And he has actually said that he would go back and have a pint in the Rovers. So Ian McLeod, if you're listening to that, just a little reminder, I'm sure he's not too busy, is he, Ben Kingsley?
I don't know what he's up to at the moment, but how could this be any less important?
Patrick Stewart. Now, for me, I don't know Ben Kingsley. I know what he looks like and everything. I don't think I've seen him in much. But Patrick Stewart, obviously super famous, went on to play Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation. He is. He's got his own little spin-off now, hasn't he? So he played a fire officer in 1967 after Dennis Tanner accidentally sets fire to Len's house, and he comes in and he does have a bit of a northern accent, but he's from Yorkshire, isn't he? He's a Yorkshire lad.
Yeah. Proud Yorkshireman.
Patrick Stewart.
And so he should be. I want. I know that Ian McKellen's already been in it, but I would love to have, because we know Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen have a bit of a little bromance going on. I want to see them appear.
I want them to playing the same characters, Mel Hutchwright and Anonymous Fire Officer.
No, it's got
for some reason getting back together.
Brand new characters and make them the first gay wedding of Coronation Street. That would be. I mean, I know Patrick Stewart is not gay, but so what?
No way.
But he's still a gay icon.
No way could Sir Ian McKellen come back into a second role on Coronation Street. Although, I might have said that about Maureen Lipman. So you never know. Other before they were famous is Bill Kenwright. Goes on to be a huge name in musical theatre, doesn't he? He did Blood Brothers. He did a national tour of Joseph as a producer. He was also now chairman of Everton Football Club. But back in the 1960s, and then in sporadic appearances afterwards, he played Betty Turpin's son. Gordon. Well, Gordon Clegg, because it's a bit of a muddled story, isn't it? It was he came in as Maggie Clegg's son, and Maggie was Betty's sister, and then it's like you know,
etc.
So
one of my favourites.
Yeah.
Are you done?
No, yeah. I'm just reeling them off now.
One of my favourites is Lummers, Joanna Lumley.
Yeah.
Who played Elaine Perkins in 1973, and we've spoken about
posh
this character
totty,
quite a few times.
Goes on to huge things.
The only reason we even have Martha as a character is because she was supposed to return to play Elaine again, and she couldn't, so they asked Stephanie Beecham. But if Joanna Lumley is still up for it, I would love Lummers to come back. She did the 60.
She did the 60.
So we know that
Stephanie Beecham was another, I guess, character celebrity casting that we didn't mention earlier.
Michael Ball, now he's very famous, another singer.
Yeah, he played a tennis coach called Malcolm in 1985. He had a couple of episodes there. And also, one close to my heart, Melanie B, Scary Spice herself, who was actually, I'm going to say, still fairly relevant. 25 years on from the Spice Girls, and she went, once they split up and everything, she completely disappeared, but she really made a name for herself in was it America's Got Talent and things like that, Dancing with the Stars. So she played a checkout girl in Coronation Street. I think it was a non-speaking checkout girl in 92, 93, around about that, so just a few years before she hit the big time with the Spice Girls. But then my other funny sort of favourite bit of Melanie B on Corrie trivia was that she was like the body double for Andy McDonald's girlfriend, Amy Nelson, when she made her final appearance on the show in 1993. There's a really sad story there. The original actress to play Amy, Louise Dupre, had just a mega nervous breakdown with the pressures of fame. And she was only in 25 episodes, but she couldn't cope with it. And so the character had to be quickly removed. The idea was going to be that Andy and Amy were going to be Corrie's first mixed race wedding, but the actress wanted to leave, couldn't appear anymore, so her final scene, the character's final scene, was snuggling up to Andy McDonald in a darkened room, but this time she was played by Mel B, and the camera just didn't really focus on her. But also, I mean, Mel B, she went on and did other stuff with Corrie, didn't she? Like, she was
she's an ambassador for Women's Aid.
Yeah, after her abusive relationship.
About Jeff's story, so...
Yeah. I mean, this original girl, actress, Louise Dupre, she ended up being found dead
what?
10 years later or so.
That's
she didn't get over her mental health issues. It's really sad. Like, her body was found and it had been left for weeks and stuff. But so that's really kind of sad.
Why did you say that?
Well, I just
part of the story.
That's part of the story.
It's hard. Part of the
story. So so those are some before they were famous, and like, you never know. There could be some actors now who've, you know, not even are playing notable characters.
Somebody
now.
just bobs in and out, like Anthony Cotton's mum.
Yeah, you know, in 30 years' time, it's Anthony Cotton's mum.
Incredibly famous.
No, there could be loads of people who are just like one-off characters now that you don't even pay any attention to, that in 50 years' time, well, maybe not 50, we'll say, remember them? They played random police officer.
They played racist policeman.
They played Pedo Van Man in Coronation Street.
I'll say I picked him out all those years ago. I knew that they were going to do bigger and better things.
And even like, who is it?
What?
Oh gosh, there's a character, the one who played the Morton girl, Kayla Morton, who went on to do something huge, didn't she? I know, I just sprung that one on you.
Maddie, the girl who played Maddie, was in a Netflix.
Yeah, Amy Kelly. She went on to big things. But that's just an actor
doing an acting job.
Yeah. Can you just talk about a few other things while I just try and find who I'm talking about? Other
celebrities have said that they like Coronation Street.
Oh, right. So just in case Corrie wants any extra...
If Corrie's listening and they want to cast some people, I mean, we all know Snoop Dogg's been dying to get in the show.
Well, yes, this has been recent
years.
Recent news recently, hasn't it?
I don't know why he wasn't in the 60 for 60, but he says he likes watching the show. Bob Dylan, who is a famous person who does music, and we know all about him, and he's one of our favourite musical performers. He likes watching Corrie. He did an interview where he talked about his love of Coronation Street, and Ian McLeod said, "To hear that Bob Dylan is a Coronation Street viewer blows my mind. I would absolutely love the idea of him turning up in the Rover's Return run one night." Now that would be something to tune in for, wouldn't it? Anthony Hopkins, everyone's favourite Welsh actor. I found this
person now, and I don't know whether I'm talking about the right person. Did Jessica Barden go on to do things? She played Kaylee Morton.
They all do acting, Michael.
I think there was another Netflix thing, I'm sure.
Well, let's move on.
Anyway,
Anthony
I'm just
Hopkins,
showing my ignorance here. Oh yes, Anthony
Award
Hopkins.
Winner.
He's talked a few times about wanting to be on Coronation Street. He even was quoted as saying, "Life isn't worth living if I miss an episode."
I think he's retired now. And also, I have to say, I do question some of these, especially Bob Dylan and Anthony Hopkins. I'm not going to say that they're old fuddy-duddies, but I do think that they're getting on in years, and perhaps modern Coronation Street is not quite their cup of tea, but I would love to be proven wrong.
I wouldn't like it to be like a Norman Wisdom sort of appearance. It's all hyped up, but then they turn up and it's like, oh, they're just a little bit past it.
No, it's not that. I'm thinking of who played.
Go on, you can do it. Just looking, where are you pointing on our wall? Patricia Phoenix.
No, who played her?
Who? Hilda Ogden, Jean Alexander.
Jean Alexander, like she used to say. I'm sorry, I don't remember names. Why do you always make fun of me?
I didn't.
I literally don't have the memory. I don't understand why, and I'm sorry that it's a failing. You all know I know who she is. Yeah. I can't remember names. She famously said she didn't watch it anymore because she thought it was a load of crap.
Direct quote there.
But, you know, do Bob Dylan and Anthony Hopkins watch Modern Corrie? I'm not sure.
This is the thing,
you know, and does Anthony Hopkins have 3 hours a week?
Do Status Quo still watch it?
Don't know.
Schedule their concerts according to when Corrie's going to be on.
Morrissey, you know, he apparently sent off a script in the 70s because he enjoyed
Corrie.
Watching it so much. And, you know, we've mentioned a few times the Corrie 60 for 60, which was their online social media drive to celebrate their 60th anniversary, which Michael took part in on behalf of us. And there are quite a few people in here who I think, if Coronation Street said, "Would you like to be in the show?" would definitely go for it.
Go on,
for example, Jason Manfield. I think Manford. Has he not been in it? I don't know.
Think he's been in it. He could be good. He might be a bit Paddy McGuinness for me though. I'm not sure.
John Thompson's another comedian, I think.
Is he? I don't even know who he is.
I think you'd recognise him if I showed you a picture. And he did a 60 for 60. He is in the Fast Show and Men Behaving. He was in Men Behaving Badly. You'll know who he is.
Okay.
Russell T Davies. Now he's written for Corrie, so
yes.
He's not a performer, so can't do that. Alan Titchmarsh could definitely do a Lorraine Kelly-esque cameo.
Yeah, I reckon somebody, like have Rita swooning over him or something.
John Bradley, who played Samwell Tarly in Game of Thrones,
absolutely.
He was in a movie, wasn't he? Not that long ago. But don't know what he's doing now. So
we've obviously just had Michael Condren playing Griff, who was in Game of Thrones as well, wasn't he? Also on Castle Black. So Corrie's ripe for some ex-Game of Thrones actors if they want to, come back to earth with that.
What about William Shatner?
Did he do a 60
yes,
for 60?
Yes, he did. He really. This is
maybe get him on with Patrick Stewart's in a comeback.
See, I know that. When Neighbours finished, they did their final episode where they had lots of ex-cast members involving themselves or sending videos in, and some of those people have gone on to get incredible amounts of fame. So I just wonder whether Coronation Street, if it ever, God forbid, ever ended, would the final episode just be like no Coronation Street actors, just famous people who've loved the show?
Certainly hope not.
There's lots of opportunity. Matt Goss, 80s heartthrob. Hackatee Dog. Now, not sure whether he could do a cameo, but
Hackatee Dog could famous television puppet. Could absolutely be a Lorraine Kelly style cameo, I think.
Dizzy Rascal, he's the one that did that song Bonkers. Some people think I'm bonkers, but Matt Lucas.
Don't fancy that. He kind of ruined Doctor Who a little bit. I don't fancy him in Corrie.
Perhaps he's been burned.
Vicky McClure, though,
from Line of Duty.
Oh, she said that she would. Didn't she say that she might be Shona's sister, or didn't Julia Goulding say that? She wanted Vicky McClure to be her sister.
Well, I mean,
the stars are aligning there. There's something in that.
We had Bernie and her counterpart Fern.
Oh yeah, Fern. Yeah, played by Gabrielle Glaister.
She'd already been in Corrie before, so it doesn't really count.
I think definitely get Vicky McClure on. Everyone loves Line of Duty, don't they? She'd be fab.
Yeah, and that there are other stories about different celebrities who have mentioned before that they like Coronation Street. I think my favourite one is definitely the incongruousness of Snoop Dogg saying that he watches Coronation Street. And it is one of those examples where I just think, I'm not sure. I don't think you know what it is.
There's a few.
will.i.am apparently.
He filmed a music video in the Rovers. There's a couple of dead celebrities like George Michael was a big Corrie fan, I think, and David Bowie as well.
Shaun Ryder.
Nah.
He wanted to be. He suggested that Kim Marsh suggested he could play Carla Connor's brother.
Don't fancy that.
I'm not sure if he looks like a Connor or even whatever she used to be, but there you go.
So that's kind of it, isn't it? Quite like them as a novelty, but can sometimes be difficult to stop thinking, oh, that's so and so, unless they really do a brilliant job.
It's one of those things where it kind of validates your love of Coronation Street to think that somebody wants to cameo in it, or which always makes me wonder whether really does it devalue the idea of soap stars. I don't know, but write in and let us know. Do you have any celebrity cameo ideas, or anybody that you think?
Who are your favourites? I mean, for me, the trio of Ciarán McKellen, Peter Kay, Andrew Sachs, that is the high point of Corrie celebrity casting. Can't beat that for cameos, at least. Should they do more where they have people just ordering a pint in the background?
I love it. I think that's great. I think it's probably a massive hassle and a bit of a ball ache, especially these days when everything's so quick. You can't indulge somebody,
It felt that when they were doing that, it was all around the same kind of era, like the late 2009, 10, 11, that kind of time, that they was like, oh, I know what we can do. Let's get some famous celebs in. I don't know. It just feels a little bit tacky to me, but if it makes them happy to say that they've been in it.
No, I don't think it's tacky at all. I think it's wonderful. I love that idea. I just love the idea of, you know, especially Cliff Richard. Like, you don't even know who's in it. You can't even see it.
Let them be in it,
Yeah.
but don't tell us they are in it until like a year later, and then they say, "Did you know that
was actually Adele?"
I can't. Yeah, that Adele was
No, I
actually
didn't.
having her haircut in the background at Trim Up
That would be
North. Go back
great.
and watch it, and you can see her shoulder, and it's definitely her.
I tell you who would be a good person to get his hair cut in Trim Up North. Rylan.
Oh gosh, Rylan.
I like Rylan.
I don't know many
What
celebrities.
about Sam Ryder? Sam Ryder's name is on the Precinct buzzer.
Oh yeah, it is, isn't it?
Famous
Or with actual
Eurovision
Ryder,
Song
isn't it?
Contest. I'm going to say winner because
Right.
we all know that
I
we
think
won.
that nearly 2 hours after we started this podcast, I did not intend to be quite so long.
Here's the thing.
I think we're done.
Here's the thing. In
Or are we?
10 years' time, are they going to be like, did you know famous double act, an Academy Award winner, and Tony Award winner, Emmy Award winner, what other music's, Brit Awards winner, for just being amazing,
Yeah.
Michael and Gemma,
Oh, and you must out multi-millionaire there.
did a podcast about Coronation
Only
Street
took them 11 years to do a Corrie
Before
podcast
they,
before they were plucked.
Before people realised how awesome they were and they just paid them for turning up to things.
Yeah.
They did that for free for 11 years.
And it's always weird how when Gemma does her talking heads, she's always wearing a bag because she doesn't want to appear on camera.
I have to do this quick because I'm actually suffocating.
So you can get II to do a representation of you. AI.
We're all going to be out.
AI Gemma. Right, I'm done. We need to have our tea. We still haven't watched last night's Coronation Street. We need to
we've got a hot
upload
pot
this.
in the oven.
We are having a Betty's hot pot for tea
We are.
tonight. I mean, it's a very hot day, but I think
It's colder now.
can't say
I
no
only
to a
put it
nice
in the-
bit
I
of
only-
Lancashire hot pot.
Did it because it was supposed to be thunderstorms.
It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay, thank you everybody. I hope you found that interesting. I suppose if you're still listening 2 hours later, you enjoyed it somewhat. I enjoyed having a chat about that. Nice to go. Those are all characters that we have talked about, or quite a lot of them are characters we talked about on and off on Coronation Street. But it's just nice to have them all together in one place, isn't it? So we'll be back at the weekend with a normal podcast. Until then, goodbye from me. Goodbye from Gemma. Say
Bye.
goodbye.